Hi, I'm Max Keiser. This is the Keiser Report. So, the central planners are here, the activists are here. I am in, of course, Belfast, Northern Ireland. A little bit rainy. Stacy Herbert.
Max, yes, people are protesting against the central planners around the world. Here is the photographic proof of it. This is not, however, anywhere in Northern Ireland. In fact, it's in China, and these are 10,000 people in China lined up to buy gold in front of a gold shop. The buyers are lined up during this 3-day Dragon Boat Festival. So I thought to juxtapose this to the protests happening here against the same exact financial and monetary crimes, how much more effective it is, Max, to buy gold, to be lining up like that instead of holding a placard out in the middle of the rain in Belfast.
Well, this is genius. When you brought this to my attention, I immediately thought, wow, Stacy Herbert has done her homework on this one, because we have two simultaneous events happening around the world. We have two groups of people who are really protesting in their own way against the same central planners and central bankers. They're both part of the global insurrection against banker occupation. Here in Belfast, you've got a group of people with placards. They're on the street. They're waving them. They have little guitars they're playing, and they are trying to get the G8 to behave in some other way than they have been behaving for decades, versus the people in China that are voting with their brain, they're voting with their pocketbook, they're buying gold, they're buying silver, because they know that the end game in all of this G8 and other related global summits, could be Bilderberg, will be a bond apocalypse and a total meltdown of fiat money systems. And if you don't have gold and silver, you're going to be out there really in the rain talking to nobody. It could be a devastating outcome for you.
Well, I mean, the other thing is, if you juxtapose that image to an image from, say, one of the stampedes into Walmart to get a 20% discount on a product made in China. So it's a very great juxtaposition there.
I never understood that, why people in America would line up after Thanksgiving and stampede and trample on each other, and people would die so that you could buy some products that have a half-life of a nanosecond that are essentially worthless. But in China, where these products are made, they see the handwriting on the wall. They see the lunacy in U.S. Walmart mob psychology, and there's panic buying of gold. That makes sense.
Okay, so I'm going to cut to a little bit of footage we shot here at the G8 protest, and just to compare that to the ineffectiveness of the protests here versus what's going on in China in terms of buying gold.
You got Max here helping me out here with the Union jacket on there.
Yeah.
Don't worry, I'll be fine over here. What's your assessment of everything happening here?
Well, the social contract is breaking down. You know, what is the social contract? You have different people have different interpretations. One interpretation would be that you've got the private space, which are private corporations and private estates, versus the public space, the public good, the public thoroughfare, the public right to express themselves. And it's always been a tension between these two, going back hundreds of years, going back to the Enlightenment. How do you juggle the interest of the monarchy with the interest of a free people? And we've had periods where there's been a good balance, but we're in a period right now where that balance is breaking down completely. In the private space, the corporate space, the military-industrial space is completely encroaching the public space, the common domain. So everything is being really whittled down into this, what Stacy calls the prison yard. So we're really living in an open-air prison. And you see examples of that in some countries where it is quite literally, without any shadow of a doubt, an open-air prison. You know, you see this in Palestine, for example. But now you see other areas like here in Northern Ireland, the gathering is really an open-air prism to a large degree. So the social contract is completely breaking down, and that's what people need to take a look at. Of course, John Locke famously said, when the social contract breaks, the people must revolt. Now, is this the revolt he had in mind? We'll see. I think there's going to be some kind of revolt taking some kind of shape, and we'll see where that goes. But we're at the point where the social contract now is gone. So it's open season, because these two sides are completely out of balance.
I remember overhearing a comment. You were talking about the winning side. that there is some kind of side. Can you explain what you meant by that?
Well, people ask me, why am I out here and not with the stockbrokers? Because I grew up as a stockbroker, more or less. As a contrarian, I believe that the paper assets of the stockbrokers are going to lose. And I just saw something this week which was confirmation of my thought, which 10,000 Chinese people lining up to buy physical gold. That tells me that the physical assets, gold, silver, and Bitcoin, are going to win against the paper assets. So I want to be on the winning side. I mean, I'm not necessarily purely doing this for reasons of humanitarian purposes. I like to be on the winning side. And I think the physical asset side, this is closer to that side than what they're doing in a G8 conference. The G8 conference is about increasing the bonds, selling more bonds, more privatization, more private equity. That's all paper, Ponzi scheme, pyramid scheming, which is really breaking down now. And so I think this will end up being the winning side in that context.
So those are some of the images we shot here in Belfast. And by the way, we're standing out in the rain because we were kicked out of our hotel behind us, where the President of the United States is staying. He kicked us out of our hotel. We were booked in there, and we're no longer in there. So I wanted to talk to you about, while these protests are going on, and while these secret meetings are happening at Bilderberg around the world, a secret report has been made public, and the headline reads, "Raise interest rates on old student loans, secret report proposes." Proposal is found in Whitehall Commission study examining how coalition could privatize the entire stock of student loans. A confidential report commissioned by the government has proposed redrawing the terms of student loans taken out over the past 15 years. That would make them more expensive to pay back for 3.6 million borrowers in England. So, Max, the bank involved in this report, this secret report to David Cameron, is the Rotschild Bank. And what they found is that this £40 billion worth of student loans that the government of the United Kingdom owns, and that's between 1998 and 2012. And these loans are capped at either retail price inflation plus 1% or the bank rate plus 1%, whichever is the lowest. And obviously the base rate is 0.5%. So students at the moment are paying only 1.5%. Rothschild's bank suggests that they go back and rewrite these previously sacrosanct contracts and change them so now that the students would be paying about 3.6% at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of the Anglo-Irish Bank, tragedy, that the country decided that they had to pay those tranches, or those billion-pound euro tranches to Anglo-Irish Bank because the contracts were sacred. We couldn't possibly violate a contract. Here you have the Rothschild Bank saying, you know what, all those student loans that we wrote, they're totally under contract, totally this contractual obligation. We're just going to retroactively say you got to pay triple the interest rate. The estimate now is that these students will be in debt for the rest of their working lives. And why? Because the people who are on pension accounts, who are blown through their legacy of their pension money, want higher yielding investments. So they're going to steal it from the students. So it's a wealth transfer from the students to the pension holders, from the younger generation to the older generation, facilitated by an outside group, the Rothschild Bank, that has totally, through PRISM, through the NSA, through MI5, through MI6, they just totally control and manipulate and advise the government how to best confiscate wealth, put it in the pockets of the shysters, the criminals, the banksters, the financial terrorists, the financial rapists, and then they just take it out of the students' pockets. The kids aren't left with a nickel, 2 pounds to rub together to buy a bag of decent dope.
Well, the fact is also we're here in Belfast, that's why we're standing in the rain, and there are protests here, and not one single student, not one single person in their 20s, all of them who had student loans, not one of them understood that they had been Cyprus. While they're out here planning a new alternative, a new world is possible, and the world is getting older and older, in fact. It's becoming more and more neo-feudal. And as part of this financial war, you could see they also have financial war propaganda, because Rothschild's Bank, in these documents, dub it the Project Hero. The authors suggest a script for ministers to persuade graduates to accept the worsening of their conditions. Quote, "We all live in difficult times," they suggest ministers argue. "You have a deal which is so much better than your younger siblings. They will incur up to £9,000 tuition fees and up to RPI plus 3% interest rate.
Yeah, these young students in the generation before, they do propaganda films, be a hero, go fight a war to make us rich. They did that for all the previous wars. Now they're saying, well, now what we're going to do is we're fighting a financial war. Be a hero. Allow us to retroactively raise the interest on those student debts by 300%. You have no say in it whatsoever. They're non-recourse loans. You're going to be, okay, to pay for that debt, of course, you can't get a job you want to get. You got to get a job for a mercenary. Got to get a job for Blackwater. Got to get a job for a surveillance. Got to get a job for the police state. Got to get a job spying on your parents, spying on your kids, spying on yourself to make the payments of the interest rate on the student loan that's been tripled thanks to the Rothschild. What a bunch of bums and
So right now, as I said, the interest rate on these student loans, these 40 billion pounds of outstanding student loans, is capped. So Rothschild Bank says that this is a deterrent to private investors because obviously the coalition government wants to sell off this entire 40 billion pounds to the pension funds. He said in order to sell as much of the loan book as possible, the financiers advise that the government underwrite the risk with a financial instrument called a synthetic hedge, in effect using the public finances to guarantee returns to private investment.
Right, so the Rothschilds want the government to triple the interest to the kids on the student loans, and they want the government to guarantee in case anything goes wrong by allowing them to create a derivative product, a synthetic CDO or synthetic hedge of some manner, and of course those are all blowing up, and they are bailed out through quantitative easing, through Mervyn King and now Mark Carney, who just pumps money into the system to keep interest rates artificially low so he can finance the bond pyramid scheme and programs like George Osborne's Help to Buy scheme, a pyramid scheme which is helped by this same type of artificial money printing.
And of course, the synthetic hedge is exactly the same sort of product that blew up Greece. This is why we have austerity around the world. And of course, you know, here in Belfast, the protesters, many of them had signs and placards saying, "Down with capitalism, capitalism has failed." And I'm going to show you and prove again, once again, that in fact, we don't have capitalism. It's called gangsterism. It's command and controlism. It's not whatever they say it is.
Yeah, one thing that hasn't been reported on that we discovered here in Belfast is that the suicide rates are skyrocketing. Thanks, Rothschild.
Well, Rothschild's bank itself says the financial risk is best taken by government. Second best is being taken by graduates. And lastly, by investors who want inflation protection. So capitalism is supposed to be about investors taking risk. It's about, they're the ones that are supposed to be the qualified investors who understand risk and manage risk and save the global economy from concentrated risk.
No, it's propaganda. Of course, they don't want to take any risk. They just want all the reward. And of course, it will be highly inflationary, and the Chinese people see that quite obviously. That's why there's a buying stampede for gold and silver before it breaks through that paper ceiling and skyrockets to $10,000 an ounce. All right, Stacy, that's all the time we have for this really nice and dry first half of the Keiser Report.
Thank you, Max.
Don't go away, much more coming your way. Stay right there.